Not only are the Miami Hurricanes off to a great start, but the Florida State Seminoles are imploding and the Florida Gators are in complete disarray. So, what does this mean for Mario Cristobal on the recruiting trail?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and writer for Canes County on Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. On this episode, we're going to talk about the next contributors. A lot of players were able to make an impact on that Florida game. A lot more will make an impact throughout the season. Speaking of impact, we'll talk about what Cam Ward is already bringing to the table at Miami. But I want to start with now the recruiting opportunities. I want you all to follow along with the show, put your loafers on, shine them up, and let's talk about what Mario Cristobal can get done on the trail. Because do not forget, Miami 2 cycles ago landed a top 10 class after a 5-7 season. And Florida State was far better than Miami that year. Florida Gators were slightly better than Miami that year, and Miami still finished ahead of them both on the recruiting trail. Following season, 7-5. Miami lands a top 5 class, again, beating out Florida State off a 13-1 season and beating out Florida in recruiting. And now, I know it's early, Miami looks far better than both. We get this question from Jeff, who says, Jeff is a Locked On Canes insider, by the way. He says, there were several recruits at the Florida game who were genuinely excited about the Canes victory, throwing up the U and talking with some of the players after the game. DJ Pickett was even seen shaking hands and talking with Justin Scott. That's his cousin's roommate. You're right about that. Justin Scott is roommates with Booker Pickett Jr. He asks, could the fact that is proving it on the field and with so many freshmen playing in the game sway some of these top recruits like Pickett and especially Ben Hanks Jr., who is committed to Florida, to decommit from their schools and commit to UF? And DJ Pickett, of course, is committed to LSU. Well, okay. Another player that Miami is really putting in the work for, who's committed to Florida, is 4-star wide receiver Joshua Moore out of West Broward High School, a player the Hurricanes would love to have, 6'4", 205 pounds. And unlike some of the other Gator commits, Moore doesn't have the legacy ties, right? So, I don't want to speak for him or anything, but I feel like this might be the one that Miami would have the best chance at flipping. But of course, if Billy Napier ends up losing his job, which seems more like a when it happens, not if it happens, it's going to happen at some point. There's going to be a lot of Gator commits that are up for grabs, and Joshua Moore, I think, is someone Miami's really after. You talked about Ben Hanks Jr. Another one is Vernell Brown III. Ben Hanks is the 4-star defensive back. Vernell Brown, 4-star wide receiver. Communication has never stopped with those players. I mean, Miami has not stopped contacting those guys and just, hey, we're here for you. It's a little interesting with those two specifically because they're both Florida Gators legacies. Now, that current mess in Gainesville, if there is a coaching change at some point, that could give Miami a serious opening there. I just wonder in the case of Hanks and Vernell Brown, because I think Vernell Brown is a third-generation Gator player. Hanks would be a third-generation Gator if he does go there, where Hanks would be a second-generation guy. Do they care as much about the coaching turmoil? Are they just like, hey, we want to play for the brand, not for the coach? I don't know, but obviously you've got to make the decision that's best for your career. Like, you don't, if you feel like it's a complete mess in Gainesville, you're not going to say, hey, I grew up rooting for this team and my dad played there, so I have to play there. You've also got to think about your own development, your own future, your own legacy. So we'll see what happens with players like that. We'll talk about DJ Pickett here. Like we all saw, like you said, Justin Scott was dapping him up after the Florida game. Pickett is not a Florida commit. He's an LSU commit. And, I know his father did some interviews after the game and said, hey, like, we're still 1,000% locked in with LSU. I know Pickett has a really good relationship with Corey Raymond, their defensive backs coach. Now, LSU also, they lost their opening weekend game against USC, and it seemed like Brian Kelly was throwing players under the bus. So I don't know if that's necessarily where you want to take your talents, but I do know the relationship between Pickett and LSU seems pretty strong. However, he's got the family ties to Miami. He seems very close with his cousin, Booker Jr., who's a true freshman on Miami's roster. Close family. His uncle, Booker Sr., played at Miami during the 90s. And yeah, DJ Pickett is planning on attending the Miami versus Florida State game at Hard Rock Stadium in, I guess it's late October when that game takes place. So Miami's going to have more opportunities with DJ Pickett, and they're not going to stop until National Signing Day. So they're saying all the right things about being firmly committed to LSU. I would love to see Miami continue to have a strong season and try to change that narrative. Because like you said in the question, like we're seeing young players get some burn and some playing time, and that's going to happen a lot more throughout the year. Like you're obviously going to see, hopefully, a lot of young guys on the field at times against FAMU this weekend and against Ball State the following week, as long as, Miami's firmly in control in those football games. But I mean, if Miami could flip 5-star DJ Pickett, that would be the cherry on top of what could be a really, really good recruiting class for Mario Cristobal. And if Miami keeps winning and keeps rolling, you can imagine what Cristobal can do on the trail, because he is tireless at it. Another player that I'm going to be watching, this is not a Florida commit, but remember, Florida State has plenty of their own problems right now. I would watch Miami with Florida State committed interior offensive lineman Solomon Thomas, who's one of the best in the biz. This is a player Miami seems to really want, and why wouldn't you? Florida State's awful start might open up some doors here. Solomon Thomas is a 5-star out of a mega program in Jacksonville Reigns High School, 6'4", 315. And if you could bring in Solomon Thomas and my guy, S.J. Alofa-Tuli, who's already committed to Miami, two of the top interior offensive linemen in the same class, you already see Alex Mirabal and Mario Cristobal are already really good at like developing some of the under the radar offensive linemen that other schools don't necessarily covet as much, because they're just so good at coaching that position group. But then when you get in the 5-stars, like you see what CC Maui-Noa is doing already at Miami, oh, this offensive line could be really, really good for years to come. So, yeah. And another player to watch in this recruiting cycle, this is not a flip, or wouldn't be a flip, but I do want people to take a look at a guy who's rising up Miami's board, Armwood linebacker Kellen Wiley. He's Girard Pringle's teammate, and he's off to a tremendous start in the 2024 high school football season. Miami recently started turning up the heat for Wiley, and now that Elijah Melendez recently decommitted, that one with Elijah Melendez, it's like, for all the time he'd been verbally committed to Miami. And listen, I want him to find the best opportunity, and I think he's going to end up at Auburn most likely. But it's like he would keep taking visits to other places and saying he was locked in, but not really locked in. So, we turned the page with Melendez. I think it was a mutual parting of the ways. But now Kellen Wiley is someone Miami is really focusing on, and Wiley is going to be visiting this weekend for the FAMU game. So this is a player that seems to really be rising. I think he's a 3-star right now, but with the way he started his senior season, he's probably going to end up getting his 4th star this year. That's another one to look at as well. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Cam Ward impact. Now, only one game, but he played so tremendously well in that one game. I want to make sure that Ward, can Cam Ward just turn his phone off for the rest of the season? Because if he sees, and he's such a hardworking guy, I don't think he's going to be fazed by any of this, but he's on everybody's radar now. Maxwell, Davey O'Brien, getting a lot of Heisman chatter now after that 385-yard performance against Florida. We're going to talk about Ward's impact, and we're going to talk about the next contributors who are going to step up at Miami. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're only getting started on this Wednesday episode of Locked On Canes. Oh, and my goodness, I am only getting started with eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. Guys, eBay Motors has gotten me out of some serious jams. When you have a problem with your vehicle, you know you're going to find the part you need. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, check out Locked On ACC. I co-host that show every day with Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. And man, I've been having a little too much fun with Florida State's poor start to the year. Between Miami's win over Florida and Florida State being 0-2, I've had this like really obnoxious grin on my face that I can't seem to get rid of. So it is what it is. Make sure you check out Locked On ACC, which is available like this show. It's available free wherever you get your podcasts, and it's available for free on YouTube. So we get this question from the 786. By the way, we're getting questions from our Locked On Canes insiders. You can try the insiders chat free for 2 weeks. Just click the link in the show description below. From the 786, you forgot to mention Cam Ward moved up in the Heisman odds from 1,400, plus 1,400 to plus 850 for the Heisman. In fact, wow, my voice really cracked there. My voice is not fully back from yelling at the Miami, Florida game. So I'm a little hoarse still. So yeah, Ward with his plus 850 odds after week one, he's now currently a co-favorite with Dylan Gabriel and Jackson Dart. So those are the top three right now. And, obviously Ward went out there and performed exquisitely well against, an SEC program on the road, 74% completions, 385 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, did have the 1 interception, but responded so well after throwing the interception. We get this question from Hurricane Keys, who says, what a beautiful weekend it was. We're only 1 week in, but if Cam Ward is selected to be a Heisman finalist in New York City at the end of the year, what do you think the impact would be for the future of quarterbacks at the U? He says, and don't forget to bring your red Solo cups to the FSU game. If you know, he says. Where is Null 321? Where is he? The guy who he said if Florida State lost to Boston College, spoiler alert, they did, that he would eat dog excrement out of a red Solo cup and film it. And then as soon as Florida State lost to BC, the guy deleted all of his social media, disappeared off the face of the earth. That goes to show you the integrity or lack thereof of Florida State fans. It's nasty work, those Florida State fans. He's probably trying to figure out who to sue over being held to his promise of eating the what out of the cup. So I don't know where that dude is. As far as listen, obviously I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves here in terms of him, Ward, being invited to New York and all that. I'm just happy he's playing well. And honestly, Ward, I know the type of work ethic and the type of team mentality he has. He just wants to keep winning. I think he would rather go 15-0 with a national championship than 8-4 and a Heisman, which is, the last year's Heisman winner, I think, had an 8-4 record. Jaden Daniels. I think Cam Ward would much rather just keep winning games and win a national title. But, I think not obviously to actually get to that finalist, that ceremony would mean a lot. And I already think just based on getting Ward here and just based on the style of offense Miami is playing, they're becoming more attractive, I would think, to top quarterbacks, whether it be top transfer portal guys. I mean, heck, they were able to get Ward here and top recruits. And I think Luke Nickel, who's verbally committed to Miami, is going to be a really, really good one. He's now a 4-star and climbing once he gets to the U. But most importantly, the way Miami's offense is now structured, it's really showing Mario Cristobal, who I know had that reputation of being a little bit stubborn, in some of his past stops, but it goes to show you his willingness to evolve, right? His willingness to bring in an air raid offensive coordinator to go out and aggressively pursue a prolific quarterback like Cam Ward, that Mario Cristobal knows you've got to be able to throw the football downfield to win these days. Like this is not, 2005 anymore, or whatever, 1991, whatever year you want to throw out there, that you have to be able to throw it down the field. You have to be able to throw for 385 in a big game like Ward did. So I think it's great. Like if Ward can have a big season, and if Miami can actually win important things this year, like the ACC, or get into the college football playoff, playing the way that they played against Florida, all of that becomes more attractive for quarterbacks out there. Because, and by the way, I love the way that Shannon Dawson called that game against the Gators. And it goes to show you, when you have a quarterback who you can trust and a quarterback who can do so many different things, you're a little bit more willing and able to open up your offense. So it all shows the evolution of Mario Cristobal, and it all shows you that a quarterback can come into this system, this scheme, and they can put up numbers. So that's all very big. We get a question from the Giant Ninja, who says, hey, don't know if you have an answer for it. Have you seen or heard of our contributions to the Canes Connection Collective increasing since the game against the Gators? Yes, I have. Canes Connection, I'm repping them with the hat here. Canes Connection put out an X post earlier this week that I think they've received like record contributions, or the contributions have gone way up since the Florida game. I don't have the figures in front of me. They didn't disclose like the spreadsheet to me or anything like that, but I did see that Canes Connection contributions have gone way up, because guess what? I mean, it's seems pretty obvious to me, if Miami's putting out a winning product, then more people are going to want to support financially and help improve the roster for the future. And we do have a deal. If you want to sign up, if you haven't signed up for the Canes Connection, if you want to directly get some skin in the game here, go to canesconnection.com. And when you sign up, use my code LOCKED, 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 and they're going to give you 20% off your first month at any membership tier. It goes from like $25 all the way up to $1,000. There's a bunch of different membership tiers you can choose from. Get 20% off of any of those. So yeah, I have heard about the contributions going up. We get a question from Pat Mack, who says, hey, so with Billy Napier's head being called for, all the replacements being mentioned, but nobody's talking about Ed Orgeron. He says, Coach O, he was pretty successful at LSU and has SEC experience. Why is he so persona non grata? He says, yeah, I mean, Coach O. And by the way, I like Coach O where he's at right now. I like Coach O unemployed. I don't mean that as disrespect, because he's still making money off of that LSU buyout. But he hangs out in Miami. His two sons, his twin sons, are on Miami staff. And Coach O, I always see Coach O around Miami practices. He is just living the life. And he loves watching Miami's operation. And I'm sure he and Mario Cristobal are very close. So but obviously, if Coach O wants to get a coaching job somewhere, I would fully support him. But as far as like why you don't see, Gators fans bringing him up, and, he was the coach of the national championship LSU team in 2019, greatest quarterbacking season ever that year from Joe Burrow. This is just my opinion. I feel strongly about it. I think one of the big reasons why Coach O doesn't get brought up is when it comes to hiring head coaches, ageism, I think, is a real thing. Like, Coach O's in his 60s. Like, I usually, and this is just unfortunate, because I think he could do a great job, but I just think that, and this is, by the way, we don't know what the Gators trustees or the search committee is looking for, but in terms of like the names that the fans are throwing out there, everybody's throwing out like Lane Kiffin as the guy that they want. Understandably, I don't know if Lane is leaving Ole Miss for that job. Maybe he would if he. And I keep seeing Gators fans like, oh yeah, Lane Kiffin. He had such a great time living in Boca. He wants to come back to Florida. Well, does he want to come back to Gainesville? I mean, Gainesville is not Boca. Just so you know. Show me the beach in Gainesville. The closest thing Gainesville has to a beach is a swamp, and I don't think that's where Lane wants to lay out in the sun anytime soon. But yeah, like honestly, I really think that in terms of like fans throwing out coaching candidates, you usually don't start throwing out candidates who are in their 60s, which is unfortunate, but it's just usually you're looking at guys in their 40s and in their 50s. But I love Coach O, and I think Coach O still has a lot left to give into this game. All right, we'll answer more of your questions on the other side, including other players that we expect to start contributing this year. And hopefully we see a lot of players. Like, I want to see 80 plus guys get playing time against FAMU this weekend. So yeah, keep it locked right here, guys. We have a lot still to cover. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. And I'm only getting started with FanDuel because football just got back, and now this weekend it's going to be all the way back with the NFL games. Miami Dolphins are 3-point favorites against the Jacksonville Jaguars this week. Miami Hurricanes just covered that spread, -2.5 against the Florida Gators. And yeah, you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, but we have something a little different for you right now. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon game out of market. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Locked On Canes, thank you so much for making us your first listen and your first watch today. Shout out to the everydayers and shout out to the Locked On Canes insiders. We've been answering questions from the insiders on this episode. If you want to try it free for 14 days, you can click the link in the show description below. When you become an insider, you get text messages directly from my phone to yours with show updates, breaking news, recruiting scoops, questions and answers that we do on there. You can try it free. If you like it, after 2 weeks, you can opt in for $4.99 a month. If you don't like it, no sweat, you can opt out. But we'll see you there on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. What other young players should we expect to start contributing this year? We get this question. He throws out some possibilities like Ray Joseph. Ray got a little burn in the first game, but definitely we can see him do more. Shamar Kirk, he threw out there. I'm still of the mind that sooner than later, I think tight end number 88, Riley Williams, is going to make a big impact at times this year. You know, we're going to see like some weeks certain tight ends really step up, other weeks because Miami's so deep at tight end right now. Obviously, the big one who put up the massive numbers this past week was Elijah Arroyo with his 89 receiving yards. Cam McCormick scored the touchdown. Elijah Lofton got some serious burn late in the game, 2 catches for 38 yards. Riley Williams, I think it's going to be the next one to break out. 6'6", great hands, runs really well, good blocker. So expect to see him contribute more. You threw out one of them. Ray Joseph for me is a big one. We're going to see him score, I think, a couple of like long touchdowns this year because of his quickness, his speed, and his shiftiness. Chris Johnson at running back. That's another one, kind of like tight end, like running back. You've got so many good players to rotate in. Like, you know who the top 2 guys are, of course, Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher, and that showed with the snap count this past weekend. Jordan Lyle, rightfully so, got a lot of burn. That dude is good in pass protection, and he's a strong runner as a true freshman. It's crazy. And then, A.J. Allen and Chris Johnson, I expect to get some burn. So Chris is another one who's going to step up. I think we're going to see good stuff throughout the year at linebacker from Popo Aguirre, who's in his second year. Cameron Bobby Pruitt in his first year at linebacker. And that's someone, like, we're going to see more freshmen on the field, I think, this week against Florida A&M. I expect to see some good stuff from Bobby, and I expect to see Cole McConathy. That's the next one that I think is going to really, because he's not like right now a true freshman, like a top line rotational guy at edge rusher, but we're going to see him, I think, develop into a role like that throughout the year. Number 44, he has practiced so well, and he's huge, especially for his age. I think Cole McConathy, we're going to see him get some burn in the next couple of weeks, and Zaquan Patterson. I think Zaquan Patterson is going to get some work at safety and make some plays. He did get some special teams reps in the game against Florida, but I think we're going to see him on the field at defense a little bit more throughout the season. So those are some of the young guys that I could see taking the next step. And I appreciate the question. It was a good one. We get this one. Hey, who was the best new non-portal starter? He says, was it Jaden Harris, maybe Ryan Rodriguez. I would say Jaden Harris. If I think about because you're right, because you have to eliminate by your criteria, you eliminate the non-portal guys. I mean, how could it not be Jaden Harris last week? Led the team in tackles, had the sitting interception that he pulled off. And I love starting safety now, Jaden Harris. I love his attitude because he was talking with us in the media on Tuesday, and he talked about like how hard the entire team has been working, and saying that, practices are becoming so tough now that the games will be feeling easier, which of course reminds us all of what it used to be in the glory days. And the example given was when Miami was preparing for that Florida game. I didn't think you could simulate this. Like, I really didn't, but I was wrong. That apparently the crowd noise that they had blasting in the speakers at the practice field, they all said was louder than what they actually heard at the Swamp. So I don't know what kind of decibel levels they were reaching there. I feel bad for the neighbors who live right down the street in Coral Gables. That was probably a little disturbing to you, but they prepared very well. And Jaden Harris obviously played great. 7 tackles, a sack, and an interception in the game. So to me, that was definitely the guy. Non-portal starters. That was a tongue twister. Non-portal starters who stepped up. I think that was Jaden Harris, number 1 for me. We get this question. Hey, it's been a long time since we last heard about facilities upgrades. Anything new to share? Well, yes. About a week and a half ago, Miami athletic director Dan Radakovich, it was early last week, spoke to the media. And so here's what's going on with the facilities, because we all heard over the last couple of years about the mammoth new football headquarters that they were going to build. So the operation center is what they were calling it, like the full big operation center. They're putting that on hold. It's still something that they want to do, but it's not priority number 1 right now. But what they are moving forward with ASAP in the near future, and I'm very happy about this, is they're going to get this stuff done right away. Essentially, is they're going to expand the indoor practice facility, because it's a beautiful facility, but it's 70 yards indoors. So they're going to expand it to a full 100 yards, and they're going to build a new weight room. Like, that stuff is going to happen. The operations center which is not, it's not a necessity compared to this other stuff. It's going to be put on hold for the near future, but they're going ahead with the expansion of the indoor facility and the new weight room. The current weight room that they have, it's nice. Like, I've been in there recently. They probably want to make it a lot bigger. So the weight room is going to get nicer. The indoor facility is going to expand. So that's what's going to happen in the near future. The full operation center, though, is on hold right now. We get a question. This one was not signed. In light of what Cam is doing for the Canes in 1 year, he says, besides Cam Ward, who do you think was the best? Oh, this was signed. Jay Mills sent this question. So he says, besides Cam Ward, who do you think was the best one-and-done player Miami has had? Charleston Rambo is my pick. He says, that's a really good one. Charleston Rambo set one season at Miami, set single season receiving records. So that's a really good one. Now, you guys tell me, does Jaylen Phillips count as a one and done? Because he was here for 2 years, but the first year he didn't really play. Then in 2020 was when Jaylen Phillips made himself a first round draft pick. So Charleston Rambo would probably be my pick, but outside of that, I would say Jaylen Phillips, if he counts as a one and done. Technically he was here for more than 1 year, but that was a really good one. I definitely wanted to answer this one. We have a couple that we're not going to get to today. We're going to get to more questions on Friday. We get this question: how does the team use Pro Football Focus scores in their weekly evaluation, if at all? He says, for instance, I heard the individual secondary grades were not good, even though we held Mertz down. Okay, so Pro Football Focus scores, that stuff is for us. That stuff is for fans. That stuff is for media. If there is any coaching staff in the country that actually uses Pro Football Focus scores to evaluate themselves internally, that's a staff that's probably about to get fired because Lance Guidry, Miami's defensive coordinator, commented on this, that Pro Football Focus, and all due respect, I've got a couple friends who work at Pro Football Focus, so I'm not saying that their work is not valuable, but it's only something for fans to look at and get an idea because, you can't expect the teams to release their internal data. It's just not how that works. But the thing is, like Lance Guidry pointed this out, when it came to the scores for the defensive secondary, Pro Football Focus doesn't know what everybody's assignments are. They're just guessing. Was this guy in the right place? Was he not? They don't know what the assignments are. They don't really know what the scheme is. So, Lance Guidry does. Shannon Dawson does. Mario Cristobal does. So I would be surprised if they ever even look at Pro Football Focus. But, it was asked to Guidry in a question because you're right. Miami's defensive back grades were like in the 50s in coverage, which is not very good. Like, how do you give them coverage scores in the 50s when, the other team throws for 122 team passing yards? So they don't know what the assignments are. Miami's coaches, believe me, they put zero stock into that stuff. But Pro Football Focus, it's valuable to me, right? Because they're evaluating every play so that I don't have to, right? They're also putting out snap counts, which is important, right? The scores, maybe not as much. The snap counts, very important. So it's a valuable tool to me. But as far as Miami staff, they throw that right in the garbage. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. Tomorrow, we're going to have Marcus Benjamin, a publisher at canescounty.com, is going to join us. That episode's probably going to be in the afternoon because I have tomorrow at my son's school. They've got donuts for dads. So I'm gonna be hanging with my kid at his school tomorrow morning and like stuffing my face with Krispy Kreme. So I'll see you guys tomorrow afternoon on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.